You again, Dr. John Sullivan from in California. How is it, John? How are you?
I'm doing great.
How's the weather?
We're having fires, so it's smoky.
I've heard. Well, it's a real honor and pleasure to have you, and a privilege to have you on the Werf and Live event in the Netherlands. I'm following you over 20 years, as long as I'm in recruitment. Saw you several times at the ERE conferences in the United States, and it's always been a great pleasure to hear you speak and learn from you. You've been around for so many years already, and always be right on spot of where the market is going. So I think we can learn a lot from you, and I like to deep dive to you and what you see that's happening now in the market, and especially wanted to start out with California, Silicon Valley. We always think that there's magic happening in Silicon Valley when it's about recruitment. What's happening in Silicon Valley if you look now on recruitment and everything that's happening on the pandemic, and maybe even on all the fire that you see now?
Well, recruitment is always the top issue. If you want to hire innovators or machine learning people, those are critical to any business, or nurses, or whatever it happens to be. You just have to be really good at it. It's the number one competitive advantage. So we're not into training or some other things, or even retention. Ours is, if you hire great football players, your team's going to win. They don't need a lot of coaching. They don't need a lot of support. And with the virus, we're all, of course, working remotely. So the new thing is hiring remotely. Working remotely allows us to hire people literally around the world. So we could never get people from Holland. They never wanted to come to the U.S. because we have a crazy government. But now I can say, good, John, you can work at home. You can get U.S. wages and live in The Hague. Well, that's pretty attractive to people. U.S. wages, but not U.S. taxes, and you can be creative. So if we can show the slides I have, I can show you what I mean.
Please do so.
Okay, the first slide. So this is a survey of global CEOs around the world. They ask them, what's your biggest problem? So for 8 years in a row, guess who won? Attracting talent. We're the biggest headache, internal headache. The virus is external. So it's the biggest headache of CEOs. They want it fixed. We have been at the top of the list for 8 years. To me, that means we need to change. Recruiters don't want to hear that, but I can't help it. So if you look at the most valuable firms on the right, this is in the world, you'll notice the most valuable firms, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft. 5 out of 6 of these firms are West Coast or Silicon Valley firms. And if you look at the most innovative firms, you can see a similarity. So what we found is working hard, showing up early, working late isn't worth very much. So the key is you have to innovate. So we look for innovators more than productive people. We want people that say, no, I won't do it that way. I want to do it a new way. So look at the very best. Look at the Apples and the Amazons and say, I want to be like them. So I work in the Silicon Valley. We look for money. So this is the reason why you want to listen to us. So here's a list of some of the firms you just saw. So if the average revenue per employee, which is the number of employees divided into the revenue, is 181,000. So if you paid an employee 100,000 euro, you're going to get 1.5 times the benefit. Amazon has a 70% higher return. But look at Microsoft, look at Google, Alphabet, look at Apple. For every employee, they get 1.7 million or 1.7 million return in value. And they only pay, $200,000 in value. So the return on investment is incredible. And if you look at Unilever, for example, their revenue per employee is $325,000. So you have to say, what in the hell is going on at Apple? And you can say, well, Apple's an established firm, but Facebook is barely 15 years old. And the same with Amazon. So what you have to say is the most valuable firms innovate. What makes them so valuable? They recruit innovators. They recruit people that produce all this value. And so that's my message to anyone who lives in the Netherlands or anywhere around the world. People don't care where the product is produced. They only care when they get the best product. And the best way to succeed in a global environment is to be a firm that's innovative. And that means you'll generate tons of money, your stock value will be great, and it'll be fun to work there because you come up with brand new ideas. So that has changed from coming to work early, staying late, keeping costs down, not something that would come up at Apple. So that's why you should listen to Silicon Valley. We know how to make a lot of money through innovation, and the only way to get innovators, you can't really develop innovators, you hire them. We manage differently. So here's the quotes, and you won't like this if you like intuition. We seek to be the most scientific HR organization in the world. We form a hypothesis. We do experiments. Google is the same way. All people decisions are based on analytics data. We want the same level of rigor for people decisions we have in engineering. So that's why we're so good. We know that a college degree doesn't predict. We know that learning ability is the number one predictor of success. So we hire better people, and we make lots of innovations, serial innovations, what we call it. And that's my message to any company, whether it's in the Netherlands or anywhere. If you're not the most innovative, you will not survive. So we call it the VUCA world, which is a term for our messed up world. Come on, the weather changes, politics changes, economy changes almost overnight. And so you have to be adaptive, innovative people. Say, well, let's not do it that way. Let's not work in an office. Let's work at home. So that's my key. It's going to be a data-driven world. Most people in recruiting are intuitive, whether it's the U.S. or Holland. They're not going to have a job. It's going to be that simple.
Okay. So to find the best people is also to find the most innovative people. Do you need innovative recruiters to find them? And what defines an innovative recruiter?
So no, it's different recruiting, but it's not innovative. It's just data-driven. So if you look for people with grade point averages, they're not hard to find, but you have to fight over them. They think they're worth a lot. You got to pay a lot and fight for them. But when you look for people with no degrees, there's not a lot of demand. There's not a lot of focus. So it's really saying what really predicts success. So we find, like Google doesn't let hiring managers hire because hiring managers tend to be short-termed. They want someone tomorrow. We call it butts and chairs. So Google says, no, a hiring manager cannot hire. We hire as a team because we're professional hires. We do it all the time, and we look for the future of the company. Individual managers just don't. So that's not innovative. There are 30% of the companies do that, but it's not the way most people in Europe do it. They go, I've been a manager. I like power. I like authority. I'm going to decide who's best. Turns out we're wrong almost half the time. So it's the data. I wouldn't say, machine learning is not even innovative. So it's not, no, the approaches to recruiting are really data-driven would be best description. You find the innovators using data, you sell them using data, but there's not any secret recruiting techniques. We use referrals. If you're at Facebook, half the hires come from referrals. You don't need technology to be a referral. It just says, Gert-Jan, if you see someone smarter than you, if you're playing football and someone scores on you, give us their name. So half the hiring is from referrals. Referrals have been around a while. I wouldn't say it's innovative. But if you go up to someone and say, no, not who's the smartest person or the oldest person or the most experienced person, who's the most innovative, then you hire someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who's a bit of a butt, doesn't have a college degree, but he thinks differently. So how do you think differently? The same with diversity. It's not different genders or skin colors. Someone thinks differently. Those are valuable people. So we emphasize diversity for that reason, because you have someone on a team that says, no, I don't want a phone with a wire. I want a mobile phone. Well, guess what? They're going to fight you because they're used to making phones with wires, but that's the new world. So no, I wouldn't say, using referrals is particularly innovative. Now, the virtual reality assessment, machine learning, a little bit, but you don't need brand new techniques. You need to say, I'm only going to use the techniques that work, and job boards don't work, job fairs don't work, most agencies don't work.
How can you, as a normal operational recruiter, become more data driven? Most of the recruiters I know don't even like data.
And those are going to be the unemployed ones. So I don't know. I know recruiters that didn't want a computer, didn't see the need for a mobile phone. Yeah, we're a tradition-bound field, but we're going to change as much as the computer changed the world. Machine learning gives you more accurate data, and it tells you can hire anyone you want. But if you focus on someone who learns quickly, you're going to win this innovation game. So I don't know. That's a surprise to most people. We don't look for grades. We don't look for experience. We look for ability to learn. And some people learn on their own. Other people go to university. This is self-directed learning. So if there's one message, stop hiring whoever you're hiring and ask them a question. The world's going to change. How are you going to learn? And when they go, I'm going to go enlist at the university, don't hire them. They're going to say, I'm going to read the internet. I'm going to learn on YouTube. I'm going to read blogs. It's learning ability. So that's free. Start hiring people that learn quickly. Stop asking people in a behavioral interview, which are so last year, how did you do it last year? Nobody cares because the world has changed. How will you do it today? How will you do it tomorrow? And let's say the virus gets worse. How are you going to do it then? So there's no shortage of talent in the Netherlands. It's the fact you're only recruiting within 50 miles of your facility. But when you say, I could work for you, I can just live in California, everything changes. So the shortage changes. Even nurses work half the time remotely. You'd be surprised the number of jobs that work remotely. So we were surprised. Managers like to watch people and look at them work. Turns out they're 30 to 47% more productive when they work at home if they're learners, if they're rapidly learning.
If I look at the infrastructure we use, and we use ATS systems, I won't mention them. No, well, I do mention their name. We use smart recruiters, Bullhorn, success factors, but also the local winners that we have. If I look at those ATS systems and they say they are data driven, then they say they use AI. It feels like they're still not on the Silicon Valley level as you described, where we should go with as Silicon Valley is, as recruitment teams are. It looks like the technology that we use, like the ATS systems or the VMS systems, are holding us back. Is that also what you see?
Absolutely. They're no competitive advantage. I've never heard anyone who bought an ATS says, well, now I'm hiring better people. So the ATS systems are data driven in that they tell you the cost per hire or the speed of hire. They don't tell you the performance of the hire. This is so simple. Let's say we're hiring salespeople and you say, I like them. They answer questions well. They dress well. Who gives a crap? Excuse my French. How well did they sell? So we call it performance of hire. How well did the salesperson sell? How many goals did the striker score? I don't know of an ATS system that measures performance of hire. They measure silly things. So, if you're hiring Lionel Messi, what's the cost per hire? Who cares? Oh, he ordered a big steak. He was expensive cost per hire. Who cares? So you measure the wrong thing. So you're right in that it's not data, it's the right data. What predicts success on the job? What predicts performance on the job? So it turns out the best people are not found on job boards. So I don't know if it's a secret around the world, but the best people come from referrals. But the best referrals come from a top performer. So Lionel Messi is never going to refer a bad football player. It's embarrassing. He's a professional. So he's only going to refer one person, and they're going to beat him in a game. And so we use top performer referrals, and we say, let's measure their performance on the job. So if you don't have data, start with sales jobs, start with customer service jobs. They're already measured. It's really not that hard to say, okay, Gert-Jan, you hire people using behavioral interviews. I'll hire them using a simulation. Their salespeople will know within 6 months who was better.
Yes, we do.
So that's what we mean by data-driven. And it happens in medicine, it happens in sports, is that do a split sample, do an experiment. So you saw the Google slide, the Amazon slide. They do experiments. So, for example, someone said, well, if you want to hire diversity and you have diverse interviewers, recruiters, do they hire the most diverse people? Logically, you'd say yes, but the answer is no. Being diverse doesn't help you hire good people. Being a great recruiter does. So what is most important? The recruiting skills, not the race of the person. So a lot of those are surprising, and people wonder why they don't meet the diversity goal. Well, because you're going to job fairs and you're not using referrals.
When I look and when I speak to recruiters and we talk about data-driven, we mostly talk about Google Analytics or A/B testing, or it's very abstract when we talk about data. It's like percentages, and this one is more used than the other one. When I hear you speak, you make data. You talk about data, you talk about AI, machine learning, but in essential, it's very simple. It's just like who scores best or who scores most. It's data is much more concrete and simple when I listen to you. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's data that predicts a top performer. It's not cost. So there's cost per hire is silly. There's even time for hire. You hire fast because it gets you top performers, but hiring fast means you make a decision quick. It doesn't mean they're better people. So it's data related to who is a top performer, what characteristics do they have. So let me give an example. At Google, at promotions, they weren't getting women to promote. And at Google, you have to promote yourself. You have to ask to be promoted. And so what they found is that if a woman, at least one woman, talked to them and encouraged them to apply for a promotion, actual promotions went up 50%. Wow. So, you just have to, that's experiments is what I call it. I wonder if people interview differently in the morning than the afternoon. So,
or after lunch.
What if most innovators stay up late at night and they innovate? Well, when you interview them at 8 o'clock in the morning, they really do stink. And one of the things I found, I used to work for HP. We would hire people. We have Chinese people. We'd bring them to Palo Alto to interview, and we thought they would be great. They were all horrible. So I just said, maybe it's the travel. How about if we interview them on the phone? And guess what? We hired half of them. Travel tires people out. I don't know why that's so difficult, but interviewing makes people nervous. So Google uses blind interviews. In other words, if hiring managers have a bias, what if you couldn't see who you were interviewing? So orchestras do this. If you watch the person perform and decide to hire them, you hire 75% men. If you put them behind a screen, you hire 75% women. The only way to know that is an experiment.
We talked a lot about data, but let's talk about, we are in the Netherlands, we love employer branding, we love recruitment marketing, and we love candidate experience. So that's more bringing in a feeling in the process, in persuading the passive candidate. What 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 finds your heart? Are you more somebody who likes employer branding, or are you somebody who likes candidate experience? Are those effective instruments to attract the best talent?
Candidate experience doesn't do much because you're not going to hire 99% of the people that come through your process. So you treat Lionel Messi perfectly. But the average candidate, it just turns out, I mean, you shouldn't be harsh to them, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to hire them anyway. They're probably not even qualified. And so we do branding. So if you have a brand, I didn't put it up there, but the number one brand is Google. Number two would be Apple, employment brand. Is that, yeah, it brings in millions of applicants. But it's a viral brand. It's through referrals. So we don't put an ad up and say, great company. We have our employees go around and say, guess what I got to do today? So I always joke. So if I went to my work at Unilever and I fell asleep at my desk, I would be fired. At Google, they have sleep pads, they have sleep rooms that encourage you to sleep. That's a different environment. So if I went to someone and we're in a bar and I go, hey, Gert-Jan, I slept at work today and my boss gave me a sleep pod to do it with, you would just start laughing. But wouldn't you say, wow? And if your listeners have a chance, go to Amazon and on YouTube or whatever, they have what they call the spheres, which are 3 terrariums, 8-story high. They're unbelievable. When you walk by and you go, what in the hell's going on there? When I walk by Royal Dutch Shell, I don't say what the hell's going on there. It's a dull building. So guess what? There are no offices in these spheres. People go to think and to collaborate. It's a terrarium. It's plants. It's incredible. So when your employees say, you're not going to believe what I did today, that's what we call employer branding. It's not an advertisement. It's not even a job ad. You don't need a job ad if you're Google. People are going to apply whatever you do. So referrals is the best way. Would I believe an ad? No, ads are full of lies. Look at political ads. But would a person that works there lie to you? The answer is no, they wouldn't. So referrals are king for 2 reasons. 1, they bring in the best performers, but 2, because they brand us. We have 24/7 talent scouts, we call it. People are constantly saying, ask me what it's like at Google. Is it true you have a nap room? They have valet parking at Facebook. You know why? Because they want their employees to get inside and collaborate. So, do you know any companies that have valet parking? Well, I do. Google does it too. Okay, but wouldn't you talk about it?
So, the examples of Google and the inspiring thing, it inspires me. I think it can inspire a lot of people, but a lot of also would say, oh man, how will I and can I fix this in my normal work? That will be the difficulty.
See, I look at it the other way. So you guys work too hard. I do referrals. I go to top performers and say, who's smarter than you? Who do you, so you're going to say John, hopefully, but you're also going to say Kevin Wheeler, right? And then I'm going to go out and talk to Kevin Wheeler, and I'm going to say, Kevin, how about if I give you the best job of your life? And recruiting is easy when you do that. So the hard part is getting managers to let them customize the job. The hard part is not looking at job boards and job fairs and saying, you're out there every day. You see these people. You know who's good. How about if you give me the names? We call it the black hole. So you mentioned ATS. What a horrible thing. Why would you put your name in a black hole that no one will ever find. So no, the best is Lionel Messi says, that goalie catches my strike every time. Hire them. It's really that easy. And if you customize the job, instead of saying, here's a shitty job, saying, here's a great job because you picked it. You don't want to work on Friday? Go ahead. It makes all the difference.
Thank you, John. It was a privilege again to speak to you. You brought a lot of stories. I think if you have written down when you read or when you heard this story and you written down all the tips that you mentioned, then that is enough to work till the end of this year to start recruiting better and to be inspired to do a better job. So thank you. I hope to see you soon, real life again in the US or in the Netherlands. We were hoping to have you on stage this year, of course, in already in May. So hopefully that could be something we can do in 2021, maybe 2022, but definitely we hope to see you in real life again. And thank you so much for this interview.
Well, I'll tell your audience they can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I write an article every week so they can get an update that way.
That's maybe the best tip to end with. Thank you, John.